Hey guys, Ron here, and for exactly a year now, I've been running these fan contests where I design some Pokemon and have my viewers submit what they believe their evolved form should look like. I pick my top 50 out of hundreds of submissions and crown the winners as the official evolved forms for these Fakemon. My talented viewers evolved regular old Pokemon, starter Pokemon, pseudo-legendary Pokemon, legendary Pokemon, and now it's time for a slightly different challenge. I allowed my viewers to take a stab at evolving any Pokemon that I've created over the last few years, assuming that they aren't already part of a complete evolutionary line. I did give them a sample of 10 examples that they could utilize, so many of the submissions were evolved forms of these Fakemon, but it was an absolute delight seeing all the random Pokemon from my gigantic lineup that people gravitated towards and decided to evolve. I wanted the final contest of 2025 to be more chill, so this added choice of a plethora of Fakemon of mine to pick from made it easier for each submission to stand out, since I didn't have to compare each submission to hundreds of very similar evolved forms for the exact same Fakemon, like in the previous contests. But that also means that the order of each entry was way harder to formulate. The top 25 or top 10 were incredibly subjective, and for that reason there won't be any judge prizes for this video. Instead, I will personally be giving a bunch of achievement awards for various entries, like Best Concept, Best Color Scheme, or Best Spryon Evolution. Many entries will be winners in their own right since the submissions were so diverse. And again, even being picked as part of the top 50 out of hundreds of submissions is impressive, so just because your design got, let's say, number 45 instead of number 5, you should still be proud of your entry. Any critique I give of the entries is meant to give closure to the artists since they earned some advice after working so hard. In fact, I plan on hosting a live stream on YouTube sometime soon to give you my opinion on all of the submissions that didn't make it to the contest video, so subscribe to know when that goes live. And if you want more of these fan contests, please leave a like and subscribe and consider becoming a member on YouTube by clicking the join button or becoming a patron on Patreon to support these huge projects. And make sure to check out the previous contest if you haven't. But before we begin, let me tell you about the literal best sponsor for an art contest. ArtWad. I want to make sure that nobody feels down about the results of their entries, and at the end of the day, helping you improve your art skill is kind of the priority. So with ArtWad, you can feel confident that you will do better in the next True Green 7 art contest. Whether you're a pro, beginner, or just a hobbyist, who wants to improve their craft, ArtWad can help you master fundamental art skills. ArtWad is an art learning platform that helps beginners and advanced artists build skills through fun lessons, quick exercises, and gamified progress tracking. Art tutorials are great and all, but I think we'd learn far more from actually utilizing what we learn immediately, with much needed exercises to hone our skills. They have courses on everything like simple introductory anatomy and architecture basics to portrait realism and frickin' dragons. While you may know me better for my character designs, I am far from an expert. And considering I barely ever draw humans, I'm gonna fully utilize their anatomy class. But where I need the most work and where I absolutely want to improve on is my environmental skills, so I can finally place my characters into fully finished pieces. So intro to environment is where I'm headed. This timeline they give you is far less intimidating. I love how they break down the classes into tons of easier to process lessons, and feeling like I can actually manage such a daunting task is usually what is necessary to finally learn what I've been wanting to for a very long time, basically. So not only am I improving my life, but I'm actually having a lot of fun doing so. You can track your progress in each course and even earn EXP for completing lessons. I told you it was gamified, and that ain't no lie. Try it out for yourself for free. ArtWad is one of the best art learning programs I've ever used, and many creators in the space feel the same way. So if you want to join me and thousands of other artists who are honing their crafts with ArtWad, click the link in the description to get a huge 30% off on ArtWad premium subscriptions. Do it fast because the deal won't last long. Let's begin with some honorable mentions, entries that could have been on the list if the following 50 weren't so damn good. I gotta say, this was the hardest contest to judge since every entry was an Evo for a completely different Pokemon, and my preferences in regards to Pokemon was a huge factor. Ultimately, that's an aspect of any art contest though. Bubble Knot is great. If it was real, nobody would complain. But the Dursible Evos on the list had slightly more interesting concepts. Gemma is hilarious, great shapes and unique proportions, but I decided to let the more serious Gypsumunk Evos on the list. Dorm Mountain is very striking and is conceptually very similar to what others did on the list. Maybe a bit less mountain would have helped. Mouse Slammer is the exact concept I'm looking for a Mousepotch evolution, but it was kind of confusing to discern various body parts. Not the main reason it's not on the list though. Bulldozen is genius, taking the Pokemon I made by stealing Bulbasaur's silhouette and evolving it into a Pokemon who shares the silhouette of another Pokemon is hilarious. I guess the more serious designs on the list nailed it too though. Bluetooth is an admirable design. The cassette tape head makes a lot of sense. There's just stiff competition when it comes to frequency evos. Hissilisk is a great design and it looks like a fun combo of both Menhist forms. forms, but ultimately just looks like another Menhis form instead of an evolved form, I guess. These three, coincidentally all evolved forms of Pokemon inspired by characters, are fantastic and of the quality of something in the top 30, but they all look like temporary ultimate forms of my Pokemon instead of full-on evolved forms. If this was a Mega Evolution contest, which I should have honestly done this year, then yeah, this would be contenders. Meltanoel is another anime-inspired design. I love the Alphonse look. Great idea, but it's a little too heavily inspired by Alphonse to look like its own thing. It was fun to witness though. And finally, the Adolescent Evos are super well done, but considering the whole point of this contest is to make one evolved form, I do judge the entries that include a middle stage a bit harsher, since it's slightly easier to design whatever you want when you add a transition stage to my own design. Amazing art though, I would look at this for hours. Think of it as an honorary number 51, because number 50 is Urshine by LA Thursday. They decided to evolve my Tardigrade and astronaut-inspired Dursible. The concept of this Pokemon capturing sunlight in its bubbles is incredibly unique, and the concept art showcased here very much helps endear this Pokemon to me. It's a great Fakemon, but considering the challenge is to make one evolved form for my Pokemon without any additional middle stages, I have to judge this a bit harsher, like I said. I guess Urshine isn't much of a change design-wise for my Pokemon, considering it's technically, evolved twice. It was super hard to tell that it was a different Pokemon from Mirror, and not just a form. Wonderful submission though. Number 49, Gypsalux by C. Sanchez Create. Gypsumunk was a simple Pokemon, but that was part of the charm. So of course it makes sense for the artist to create something that wasn't too extreme in any way. It's a very natural progression with flawless art and a design I have zero complaints about. The other Gypsumunk Evos on this list simply had more interesting concepts, but if this was real, I would be very satisfied. Number 48, Corprat by Axonite. This gets the honor of being the highest placed Mousebotch evolution. You see, when you create a Mickey Mouse inspired Pokemon, you get a lot of submissions that are a bit on the nose, but I like how this evolution does its own thing, and instead of making a giant evil Mickey Mouse with a brush, we get a more subtle allusion to corporate greed by designing a horde of Mousebotch in an almost Rat King-esque amalgamation. The lore and design makes total sense. I guess it simply would have been higher if it felt more like an Evo as opposed to a form like School Form Wishy-Washy, but that's not an actual flaw with the submission. Great name too. Number 47, Pistaga by E.S. Misdom. My little pistachio Matryoshka doll Pokemon is one of my absolute favorites, and taking inspiration from a pistachio tree in order to give it its Evo a bird-like element, transforming it into a Baba Yaga reference is very genius. Obviously, it's not the only submission with a Baba Yaga reference, but it manages to find tiny ways to stand out. I just wish it kept a bit more of the nesting doll aspect. Number 46, Drakion by Nether Pixie. This is an evolved form of Speedra, the Pokemon I made that only has a speed stat, and that's it. Now, it is a fact that this is my favorite Speedra evolution submission. I love the extra legs to simulate smear frames, the longer neck to look like a sea dragon, and the infinite lightning. It's not just a bigger version of my design, but takes the elements and evolves them. But the only reason it's not in the top 20 is that it's just a sketch. I know that this artist could finalize it and perhaps give it a more dynamic pose, and it would have reached the top 10. So for now, it'll have to settle with the Best Sketch Award. Number 45, Gobubori by Mr. Martin Crestburn. The best evolution of my Pac-Man inspired Pokemon, Roundevourer, that I saw. The idea that it consumes ghosts whose spirits are visible through the glass frog inspired throat sac is clever. The shapes and colors are appealing, and I highly appreciate this deep cut. If it was a bit more streamlined, it could have moved up a bit, but that's just a nitpick. Number 44, Waddleanch by The Bathhouse. I love how many of the Huddleth evolution submissions gave this couple a pre-evolution to take care of as well. I love how the artist incorporated the Heart Pebble evolution method into the design of the Pokemon too. It's an adorable design and very well drawn. I just don't know how this would work as a creature. Is it always a slide? Are the babies always sliding? How is that a bearable existence? I was wondering how it moves, and the Pokedex entry mentions it, yet I still don't understand. Fun submission though. Number 43, Mossilith by Austral Art. An evolved form of my Pokemon that has a speed stat of 1. The added Moss is a welcomed and natural progression, but later Mossloth evolutions simply have a more interesting change of shape. This kind of just looks like a lethargic with moss, but I like that. I've always said that there's nothing mean about adding some green. Number 42, Nullisphion by Mion Arts. Sprion is one of my top 10 favorite Pokemon out of the more than 600 I've ever made. Naturally, there were a lot of evolution submissions for this little atom, but that also means that it was harder for them to impress me since I had very high expectations. I very much wanted a video game inspired design, and this delivers. I love how the artist meshed it with the multiple arms of Hindu gods. Makes total sense. I think I was simply looking for a more atomic, nuclear, or simply scientific look for the Evo instead of a more spiritual one. Not a problem. This design is fire. I take it any day of the week, but it's hard to find the perfect final form for what I like to believe is the protagonist of its own story. Number 41. Glacialeo by Lolputbug. I absolutely love this art style, and the concept is entertaining as hell. I very much envisioned that the evolution of my Discold would have a hat, and I'm glad that it kept the celestial theme, considering my little dude is inspired by aliens and has a little ice UFO drone. But a huge aspect of the Prevo was its IKEA origin, since I made it in the video where I turned brands into Pokemon, so I wish furniture was included in some way. No flaws with this at all though, the following design just expanded on every concept. Number 40. Burniture by Procelion. A fantastic name for an evolution of my IKEA-inspired Pokemon. The entire set, with table, chairs, and overhead light combined with a UFO, is without a doubt well done. The rendering is flawless, despite ice always being hard to shade. This is a perfect Fakemon. I just personally think the body is a bit small for my liking. Like, it's simpler than the Prevo, which is fine. You're allowed to streamline aspects in order to introduce new concepts. It's a smart way to make sure it's not over-designed. Number 39. Absolotl by Checkers. An evolved form of my special Lotl, which only has special defense. Fusing it with a toxic orb is rather inspired. The artist added a new element that makes sense, especially now that it resembles an Eastern dragon. You'll notice that I am rather partial to the entries that turn special Lotl into an Olm, a long salamander. That's very much the direction I would have gone in, so no real flaws here. Number 38. Zidonkilin by Mr. Flamtastic. I love the shapes of this design, super striking for my little donkey zebra Kirin hybrid. The choice to make it an electric type is fun, and the sharpness is very much a direction that could have been utilized. I want this to exist, but the question is if this is the most magnificent Zonkirin evolution that could exist. You'll see later submissions I think do more with the concept. For now, this definitely feels like a potential pseudo-legendary though, so good job. Number 37. Goatera by the Fakemon channel. Terrakita is a Gen 6 inspired Damascus goat. They're bred so heavily that they look super cute as a child, but incredibly weird as adults. I combined it with clay and artists, so many went in that direction. This design abandoned the potential artist setup though. That isn't a problem because what we got is this epic Damascus goat Dust Devil with a wrecking ball. I would totally use this, and it's the kind of Pokemon I love. There isn't anything wrong with it design-wise, I just preferred the interpretations you'll see later. Number 36. Prosciuttum by wispiedex. One of the winners from the last contest decided to evolve my joke Pokemon Hamask. I obviously love everything about this. There's nothing that I can't praise about the design and artistry in general, but I guess when you evolve an already unserious Pokemon in a way that already takes inspiration from an existing Pokemon like Kafagrigus, it's simply less breathtaking or surprising compared to later entries. But I do want to award it the Best Rendering Award. wispiedex knows how much I love this art style and shading. Number 35. Amperlot by Olejo. Another fantastically shaded submission. I could swear this was traditionally drawn, but I have no proof. If the main body was slightly more, evolved, this would be in the top 20. Because right now, it just looks like a form of my Pokemon. But again, there obviously are cases in Pokemon where the Pokemon barely changes upon evolution, but those are exceptions. This is such a brilliant design, and the sense of 3D shapes here is incredibly appreciated. I don't know if it's a perfect Evo, but it's definitely a 10 out of 10 piece of art in Fakemon. Number 34. Cynism by Stimulant6, an Evo of my YouTube-inspired Pokemon. If this felt a bit less like an alternate form of the Prevo, this would be higher. It simply doesn't change or add enough, but what I'm seeing here is pretty sick. It's such a great pose with a fantastic silhouette. Honestly, it just seems like a redesign of my Fakemon. A successful redesign at that. Number 33. Enlightmonk by Draw with SJ. I love how this is a cross-trade evolution with my little sewer rat Hydrat, one of the only Gypsumunk Evos that went the generous route. I like the lore and art style a lot. This would be great as a split Evo with a more greedy Evo, but I can dig the Laughing Buddha origin. If the main body went through a tiny bit more changes, this would be my favorite Gypsumunk Evo. Number 32. Gemtle by Flanjon. This ended up being my personal favorite Gypsumunk Evo because it feels like an actual separate Pokemon that utilizes and changes every aspect of the previous form. It also feels like a very believable Evo that Game Freak would do, especially since Gypsumunk is supposed to be a regular old Pokemon. I love the blue and how the patterns become both a mustache and a coat. It's very streamlined with no superfluous details, which makes sense with its speed stat. It basically gets the same score as the previous entry, but I like this a percent more. Number 31, Ravagin by Canute Art. Yeah, this looks like a stronger version of my Storm Genie, Gineon. But to get to the top, you gotta wow me with something extra. Honestly, this feels less like an evolution and more of a straight up better version of Gineon. It looks like my design was a beta concept and Ravagin is the final, better version of the same exact concept, instead of an evolution of that concept. Believe me, this is a huge compliment. I wish Gineon simply looked like Ravagin. Number 30, Terra Sculpta by Shortcake Star. Instead of making the face ugly like a Damascus goat, the artist came up with the idea of having clay on its back that it manipulates into a bunch of cool and scary configurations. I can't help but respect it. It's not even close to what I would have imagined Terrakita becoming, but it's an amazing Fakemon design and concept. And I can see many preferring this over the Terrakita Evos that you'll see later. Number 29, Atom by Horatio Arcas. This is closer to the personality I would personally vibe with for a Spryon Evo. The rendering is fantastic, and there's literally nothing wrong with the design itself. If it existed, we'd be like, yeah, that's a pretty nice Pokemon, but a later evolution has a grander concept, and when I make what is basically a nuclear Pokemon, you know I'm looking for something more explosive. Number 28, Dormidon by Sloppy McSlop. It ain't the most complicated lethargic evolution, but it's the one that makes the most sense. It becoming a Megatherium with a huge hole that Pokemon can actually take refuge inside is a concept with no problem at all. I very much understand why the artist submitted this and thought it was a good idea. What makes it more special is the sketch showcasing the back, and more importantly, the hilarious sketch of Lethargic peeking out of the hole so nonchalantly. This is what I made this contest for you guys to expand on my art and make me love my designs even more. This is great stuff. Number 27, Baba Stachka by Garlic Noodle. I love the personality of this one. The lore is crazy and I don't really know what it looks like most of the time. Is it always in this position? I'm not super opposed to it, I guess. I think this lack of answers simply makes it feel a bit incomplete. Not design-wise, of course. I guess it's just a really cool character design. I just don't know if it looks like a Pokemon to me yet. It would if I got used to it though. I guess I'm just conflicted because I know this is a 10 out of 10 in my soul, but I can't bring myself to put it higher. You know how many submissions include concept art? This one definitely needed that. Number 26, Sharp Pastry by Sneaky Snack. It's the Evo of Bulbun who was made in the video where I turned silhouettes into new Fakemon. I mean, this is a perfect pastry dog, I can't deny it. I love him to bits. I just think our love of dogs may cloud our judgment here. Also, this isn't the artist's fault, but considering Darkspun already exists, I'm not blown away by the concept of this Pokemon, you know? But y'all deserve to see this, so it's on the list. Number 25, Patriarch by Cricketo, or Cricketo? Maybe it's that. Let me outright say that I love the little prevos that the artist created, and the entire concept makes total sense and is very well executed. The idea that the patriarch is on top while the mother balances the entire family is it's just poignant art. I mean, that's how it sometimes is, but it's unfortunately not the concept I would have wanted to see as the final evolution. The Huddleth Evos you'll see soon give my Fakemon a much happier ending, while also finding a great concept as well, like this one. Number 24, Ferrokiru by Theo. This is the Evo of Fair Alloy, which I made years ago by redesigning the terribly made AI-generated monstrosities, back when AI image generation was in its infancy. Dude took this nonsense design and made it sick as hell. If it was a bit less complicated, considering even pseudo-legendaries aren't this complex, I may have put it in the top 10, especially since it's derivative of existing fictional characters, but as a piece of art, this is one of the best in the video, and it made my day seeing it. Thanks for submitting, Theo. Number 23, Specialong by Celaya Art. Another submission that includes a middle stage. The placing is a bit lower than it could because you'd think that after a cocoon-like middle stage, the final evolution would be more spectacular, but it's just a long Specialotl. It doesn't even gain any more limbs. Every feature it has is present in Specialotl. But if I were to look at it on its own, it's pretty sick. It heavily relies on my design, but god do I like looking at it. It would be popular if it were real, and I'd use it immediately. Although those stats make zero sense. Maybe not. Number 22, Jam Llama by Sekna. It's a lamb-inspired evo of my Jam Lamb, a Fakemon I made in a video where we spin a wheel for a bunch of attributes to include in our design and various challenges while drawing. It's not even close to a Pokemon I seriously made, so to have a very cohesive and believable Mon as its evolved form is quite impressive. It is the best Jam Lamb evo that was submitted. The shapes make total sense to me, unlike my own design which Sekna redrew here. It's a proper Fakemon now. Number 21, Budhotl by Winston Wright. Honestly, I would totally do a similar thing by having this specially defensive special Otl who would die from one punch evolve into a water mech piloting monk. It makes total sense. I also love how the actual body evolves too, instead of just the water. It doesn't have to be by a lot, but when competing with others, minor things like that add up for extra points, you know? But at the end of the day, it's all subjective considering we have so many different kinds of Pokemon in this contest. Fantastic showing, my guy, though. Number 20, Communic by Curtis W. This feels a bit more like the kind of community I was looking for. A patriarch that holds its brood on its shoulders is a bit less bleak. It very much feels like a natural progression, and the sense of movement with it balancing is very well conveyed. I guess the only thing preventing it from being the absolute best Huddleth evolution is the lack of a unique baby design. It's not mandatory, but considering so many Huddleth evos included it, I kinda see the vision now. But again, perfect design for what it is. Less of a critique and more just honesty about my preferences, since ultimately, it's my contest. Number 19, Major Arc by Molten Gates. The best Durable evolution I saw, since it actually looks like a different Pokemon instead of an elongated Durable. The added contrast really helps it stick out and makes the added yellow pop out more. The line weight is phenomenal, very well drawn, and the angle and lighting really helps showcase the size of this beast. While the expression makes total sense and I appreciate the extra bear attributes you added, if there was a bit more personality in the face, this would have been in the top 10. But I guess that change is tough considering Major Arc's lore here is that it's in constant distress. Number 18, Cash Adder by Andre. Now this needs context. It's an evolved form of this unnamed camera Cyclops doodle I made in this video where I designed an entire region in 1 hour. So this little guy was made in 30 seconds. I mean, considering I didn't really finish it, Cash Adder does feel a bit like a proper redesign of my Mon, but since it upgrades and expands on pretty much every element, it does look like a proper evolution. I mean, the way dude combined the features of a mythological creature like those teeth on the bottom of the camera and the pelt of an Oni makes it look incredibly natural, far from the borderline unusable Pokemon I made. It simply didn't make the top 20 because it's generally not an appealing Pokemon, not because the artist did something wrong, but because it's supposed to look abominable. Number 17, Saw Radio by Franklin Fakemon 2025. Great name. This evolved form of my creepy little frequency, which was made as a cause of Lavender Town Syndrome, is very much the way I would have gone with an evolution of this Pokemon. Something with a long neck and either a radio tower or siren. The artist very much knows how to design a believable Fakemon in the Pokemon art style and with the right amount of details and proportions for a Pokemon. But honestly, it's literally just one entry below for personal reasons. Nothing wrong with the design at all. I just think combining it with a dinosaur made it a bit less creepy. The following is quadrupedal in a more unsettling way. Number 16, Broadcast by Jams, winner of the Best Name Award. Seriously, that's how you name a Pokemon. This is kinda how I'd evolve Frequency. A long, creepy siren radio tower that still keeps its hood and crawls in an unsettling way. It builds and expands off of the early gen creepypastas and contains very interesting shapes. It would be my number 1 pick for the best Frequency Evo if the next entry didn't surprise me with a design I wouldn't have considered. Number 15, Reverberant by Scamperdoodle. Turning the tail into a seismograph and giving it arms with loud speakers on them, it's the natural next step. Not gonna lie, my Pokemon was designed to give off the vibe of a Gen 2 Pokemon, so to have this be reminiscent of a Gen 4 evolution that Game Freak gave a ton of Gen 2 Pokemon during, the Sinnoh era, makes it feel very real. Game Freak would have evolved this in the exact same way that you did. This was actually below the previous 2 entries because I would have turned my design into a radio tower instead of a bigger speaker like this, but the personality showcased with this one, and most importantly, the doodle of Reverberant protecting the little frequencies, made it the best frequency evolution in the video. Number 14, Mudam by Olive Pit Art. When I designed Terrakita and gave it a beret, I did think about how I would continue the motif when it evolved, and this exact hat is what I was thinking about, so I'm very glad the artist went in this direction. What's great is that every fashion choice here makes a lot of sense with everything that I set up, and most importantly, it stayed a Damascus goat, so the face has this signature wonk, but the rest is super pretty. The confidence makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't change anything. Number 13. Kovkreet by yet another Diego Brando. I am blown away by the sheer artistry here. Yeah, I like the other Pokemon in the top 10, simply in terms of my preference in Pokemon designs, but in terms of the artist's ability, this is a perfect submission. A cute layout, some mesmerizing concept art, a fantastic recreation of early Sugimori art style, but the thing this excels at the most, more than any other entry, is this guy's drawing of my Fakemon Pistochka. Again, I already really like Pistochka, one of my favorite designs from the last few years, but this drawing here made me realize that I may like it more than I've ever imagined. I may even ask the artist for access to that Pistochka drawing alone. She's so badass, while still being incredibly cute. It makes me so happy. Again, many others did a great job of redrawing my design and their layout, but this one gets the award for Best Art of my own Fakemon. Number 12. Rooking Glue by Gray Norris. This gets the award for Best Huddleth Evo. It continues the Native American theme with Inuit inspiration, combines the mother and father into believable igloo that could totally still move around, and the artist gave us cute babies that could live a happy little life inside their parents' shelter, the same way a penguin would protect its young. This is how you do it. We're learning so many lessons when it comes to how to design a compelling mon. Would love a Pokemon exactly like this. Number 11. Mountolith by Absolutely Uncanny. Ultimately, this is my favorite lethargic evolution, and the major reason why it's at the top is that it's incredibly cool. I mean, it's an amazing Fakemon design. It makes sense for a rock type. The idea that it closes its cavern-like shell to sleep is clever. The lore established is well written. It has everything I look for in a submission. The entries in the top 10 simply change way more. So it's slightly lower because it still utilizes a lot of my original design, which I want you guys to understand isn't a problem at all. It's just that when there is a competition, you gotta be way more picky and give extra points for those who made sure their evolved forms feel like a separate design and not some kind of form of my Pokemon. It's tough and subjective though. It's not like there's a science to it. Every design excels for different reasons, and I can excuse one bad aspect of a design if it wows me in another way. I mean, technically that's why this is number 11 out of hundreds of submissions. That's a very good score, guys. Now, before showcasing the top 10, I want to quickly let you in on a group I call the Nifty Nine. 9 entries that were totally top 50 material, but were already designed by artists who made it into the list. You see, I gave y'all the ability to submit 2 designs, but I only placed the best of the 2 on the list. So the following are pretty rad designs that I just like the other design that these artists made more, whether they be ones that you've already seen or will see. So the following are pretty rad designs. I just like the other design that you've already seen or will see by the following 9 artists. Pegasurge is great. Love the expansion on the almost pastel colors I established. Don Quark would have been super cool to see on the list so we can give Borvid some representation. Amphibibrawl is too good too. I just noticed the little hand on the tail. Juminance would have easily been on the top 20, but it was kind of hard to make out its face, so I decided to give Scamperdoodle's other design the light. Solarstone is a pretty neat concept, expanding on the implication that I said that the true creature is actually inside the rock. That's pretty dope. Thycantrope is top tier, but I can't have 2 designs by the same artist so high on the list. You'll see. Cerebellum is as cool as they come, but there's an upcoming design that Bahamut made that I think is a tiny bit better. Same with Airy Sheep's upcoming creation. Cool Mickeymon though. And finally, Velocidra would have made it to the top 20. It's a perfect Speedra Evo, but the second design they made blew my mind a bit more. Let's go ahead and find out what actually made it into the top 10. Number 10. Tramful by Migo Avril. It's funny because this is kind of an exception to something I said previously. The point here is that it doesn't change too much in terms of design, but has way more heads and shrooms to showcase the nature of fungi and almost to simulate like a psychedelic trip where you can see a bunch of funny faces. Combining it with gnomes and making it almost like a little mushroom gnome village without it being over-designed is impressive. I love the mushroom hats, and it explains the origin of Stoutrot as a whole. This is very much a complete version of what I designed. The ultimate hive mind. It's pretty much what I wanted to see from the evolution of Stoutrot, the Pokemon I made in the first ever another episode of my Fakemon design series. It's one of the most entertaining designs here. I love it. In fact, it gets the funniest Pokemon award. Number 9, Damaskaso by Bahamut. This gets the award for best Terrakitta evolution. The whole point of the concept was, to evolve it into a not so good looking artist. The artist combined the Damascus goat with pottery, and I think it was pulled off beautifully. Introducing the darker tone with primary colors as accents gives it a lot of contrast, made it pop. The beret messily combining with the ear works well, and the pot hooves feel very natural. I almost didn't notice them. I'm sure a good trainer could give Damaskaso a happy life. It's a fantastic character and Fakemon. Feels like what Terrakitta would have evolved into in Generation 6, which is what the whole point of the concept is. Number 8. Pyrat by Roki, the evolved form of my pearl diving sewer rat Hydrat. The best in this list at that. Everything was expanded and made better. The tail is now a rudder, the feet are now webbed and hooked to catch prey, the whiskers harpoons, the teeth golden, the shape way more hydrodynamic, and the body more reminiscent of a U-boat with the pearls configured to look like windows of a submarine, all while giving the vibes of a ghost ship. This is incredibly well done. Again, I get emotional seeing these evolutions to some of my oldest designs. Number 7, Mysterion by Aries Sheep. I mean, this is pretty as hell. I think my favorite submission by Aries Sheep. It's a flawless design. There is nothing I would change, and I'm sure if it existed, it would be one of the most popular Pokemon ever. Like, I have so many people I know who would absolutely love this, and would even want this to win the entire contest. But for now, it's just a perfect, more feminine counterpart to the next entry, which is a bit closer to what I believe makes for a better Zonkiran evolution. Number 6. Kier Sakura by Matisox. Despite Zonkiran kinda being a one-off joke design, I did imagine it turning into something more masculine and natural looking, and here we are with exactly what I wanted to see. I love how the patterns become these bark-like plates and horns. I'm always a fan of seeing how the color scheme evolves with the Pokemon, and this did not disappoint. This is just a classic Pokemon evolution. It's like seeing a Growlithe turn into an Arcanine. It feels right. The best Zonkiran evolution here. But an extra award I do want to award this submission is the Best Layout Award. It's far from a priority, but the way the artist was able to neatly include everything like the stats, entries, size chart, and even an extra angle, dude was economical with it. Number 5. Harpsichord by Fossil Claws. It gets the Niche Award for evolving a Pokemon I recently made within a Raycon ad. This is crazy because I was kind of going to evolve Scalo in a future Raycon ad, but it was basically going to look exactly like this, but I guess worse. Maybe I'll have to contact Fossil Claws and give them a tiny licensing fee to use it, because this is majestic as frick and hella genius. Not only does it look like an angelic snake, but it so naturally and cleverly becomes a harp with those pretty ribbons. This is just top tier character designing talent. Good show. Good show. Learn from this, everyone, for the next contest. Number 4. Nuclesion by Valsmith. We have some great Spryon Evos that made it look like a powered-up video game protagonist, but Valsmith submitted the best Spryon Evo because it looks like a final form, the most powerful Spryon could ever become, a nuclear explosion. What's cool is that it's so radically different in vibe, but retains many of Spryon's attributes like the spherical body parts, the hair swoop, and the orbiting parts. I honestly think if the face had a bit more of Spryon's face, this would be number 1. A bit of a personal thing though. Nuclesion gives me so much emotion, and that's what is important. It's inspiring. The best sentient atomic explosion Fakemon I've ever seen. Number 3. Axovarus by Flatwormodon. The best Special Auto Evo. Terrible dex entry, but goddamn is this a very interesting and memorable way to make Special Auto evolve into a protagonist in its own right. The body changes like I want it to, but the artist streamlines it so it doesn't take focus away from the psychic seaweed. This plant mech is exactly what Special Auto would manipulate in order to become an actual threat. The way this was drawn also clearly shows mastery of form and character design. This was 100% made by someone with a promising future or present in animation. I'm humbled that you even took the time to enter my little contest. Number 2. Meteormite by Polani. Without a doubt, the best Cosmotoad Evo submitted. Cosmotoad is originally by Alex Gottlies in a video where I redesigned fan-submitted Fakemon, so even if I genuinely wanted this to be my number 1, I don't know how I'd feel about this. The only reason it isn't is because I would change a thing or two while I wouldn't change anything when it comes to the next entry. It abandons the rock element, is a tiny bit over-designed, and could easily be a cool superhero toad in any franchise, but goddamn is that not a problem with me. This would be in my top 20 favorite Pokemon of all time if it were real. It is extremely cool, and I'd recommend this artist to anyone considering they are as good as they come when it comes to character design. But they literally have no online presence. They just made a Twitter account, so hopefully they post more of their top tier art. I barely have to praise this entry because you can easily tell how high it should be placed. I'm sure the artist would win the next contest if they chose to submit again. I'd be humbled, really. And number 1 is Pinatochka by Brush with Death. As you've witnessed yourselves, I've been falling in love with Pistochka over the course of this contest, and Pinatochka convinced me that my design has some of the greatest potential out of any I've made. Grimm expanded on everything while keeping both the doll and pistachio elements, while upgrading it into what could be one of the best indie video game protagonists ever. Check out these fabulous doodles that highlight how cute Pinatochka is, whether she's sitting down, resting in her shell, or most importantly, gliding. That concept art of Pinatochka flying sealed the deal. This is a fully realized character, and I would love to see her kick some ass in some kind of animated capacity. I'm very grateful for this contest because I got to see some of my favorite creations in the best light. Congrats, Brush with Death, for finally being our absolute winner. You made a perfect Fakemon. Make sure to check out Brush with Death's channel right now if you want to see more amazing Fakemon. And if you already follow them and haven't seen the previous contest videos of mine, make sure to do so right now. If you want to see the contest continue in 2026, please leave a like and subscribe. Check out all of these amazing artists and their socials, and consider becoming a patron or YouTube member to support these huge projects. And please make sure to follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky to know when the next contest is out, which you can also do by subscribing. Bye!